When you're in Davos, you must get a ringside view of how India is being accepted at the high table of the world, and what are the challenges and opportunities that we are seeing. And tonight, joining me for a chat on what's really going on here at the World Economic Forum in Davos is Mr. Rajan Mittal, Vice Chairman of Bharti Enterprises. Also joining me, Sumant, Sinha, the man who represents green energy and talks green energy and is the president of ASSOCHAM. I want to get a sense, Rajan Mittal. We're seeing a lot of buzz about India, bright spot, this, that and the other. Is this more in our head, or is the world really looking at India as a bright spot? And is there something which is a ray of hope for India in terms of the strides it's making in growth and catching up with the rest of the world?
You know, Navika, I've been coming here for a long period of time. And
how many years?
13 or 14, I can't remember. And every time I say I won't come, but I'm back. But let me tell you, we've seen buzz many times. It's not the first time. But this time is actually more palpable. You can see that India interest, and I've met a lot of international CEOs, I've attended sessions, I've met presidents of different countries. I can tell you there is an opportunity. Because also the world order, that the way it has been changed between US and China, India is looking for an opportunity, and they are looking for in India both for domestic consumption and for actually moving their factories of the world, as the China is called, into India. Opportunities there. Can we seize the opportunity? That always is the question. But my belief is with the manufacturing thrust that India has given over the last couple of years with the PLI schemes and so on and so forth, and services in any case holding up, it is an opportunity. And India is a bright, in that sense, in a direction and a start. The way we see Europe and US in a recession of a sort, we are still holding up.
Sumant, Sinha, green energy is the buzzword as we hear in many conversations that are happening in Davos. How do you see the opportunity for India as far as green energy is concerned? And is it all talk, or will it translate into making India really the center where the world can take notice and it makes a difference to the Indian economy?
Sure. Well, first of all, to your previous question on whether India is just a talk or whether there's true something concrete behind here, I would say that up till now, India was always seen as a large domestic market, but there were frictions of doing business there and so on. But now I think what's happening is that all the geopolitical stars are coming into alignment. China is still a little bit uncertain as to how it's going to open up. There are issues around whether, in fact, there's the decoupling will happen or not. So those kinds of things are playing at the back of people's minds. And security of supply chains has become a very important factor. And that's why now, in addition to the large domestic market that India provides, there's also this question of, can India become a manufacturing destination for the rest of the world and thereby suck away a lot of the manufacturing capacities out of China and into India. And that's something that is really new. Now, as far as the sustainability issue is concerned, you would have picked up the buzz here around sustainability, right? I think that there is clearly an inflection point that has been crossed. I think every company now, for example, every large global company has a chief sustainability officer. Everybody is now thinking about their scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, how to reduce those. And India, in that respect, is seen as really a country that has taken a lot of lead in this area. Because of the targets that have been set, the green hydrogen national policy, the PLI schemes, all of that is really coming together very nicely. So people are now realizing that, look, India is a leader in this area. Indian companies will become global leaders eventually in this area as well, and that we can actually be a really good provider of export products as well. But it will take time. We have a lot of catching up to do with China in that respect. But it will happen, and I think that sustainability is going to give India a really good, another sort of additional growth opportunity as well.
Well, that's my question, Rajan, to you as well. We've been hearing this, that India can be this alternate spot from China, become the manufacturer for the world. But we missed a few opportunities. This time around COVID, when China was going through its problems, we once again have that opportunity. Are we making enough out of that opportunity? Will we actually get onto that bus this time? Do you see a slip between the cup and the lip? And on recession, you said the Western world is going through recessions. The question is, there is talk of India not being completely insulated. How are we preparing for that?
Let me take the last question first. Of course, India can't be insulated. We are an interconnected world. Economies do affect. When there is a recession, it will hit our exports. It happens. But still, as someone said, domestic market is holding up. As far as the manufacturing side is concerned, yes, we have seen many slippages. But world has also changed. The world order has changed. People are looking for trusted nations, trusted partners, trusted products, trusted sources. And India stands out in that sense to be one of those partners that can be providing all of this. We've seen in telecom and particularly, we hope that Indian stack really shapes up over a period of time. There's just being one sector. We have to play this well, I have to say, the central, the state governments, because finally the execution happens in the states. And that challenge remains always. We have seen the central government policies are, enabling policies, but when you go to the states, and you've seen, Navika, there are 6 states representing India here in different capacities. A lot of people have been met. They have assured. So I'm only hoping that there's no, slippage between cup and the lip this time around. It's an opportunity that we should not let go.
We should not, but will we?
That's, as I said, it has to be played by the corporate world, the private sector, the government and the state governments in tandem. It cannot be done by one or the other. So we, all of us, have to, in that sense, bat on the front foot and make sure that the government and the ministers, there are 4 ministers who are representing Government of India, and then the state chief ministers or ministers, that they work in tandem along with the private sector to make sure that we do not let this slip.
Sumant, my question to you is about the fact that there is a looming energy crisis. The war between Ukraine and Russia has shown the soft underbelly of the Western world. India so far has managed well with its supplies and diversifying its basket. How big do you see in the next 12 months the energy crisis is going to be? Are we, again, the question is, are we going to be insulated, or will we have to pay the price of the war that's happening? And considering everything in India centers around the politics of the country, we are entering the election year as well. How do you see this moving forward?
Look, Navika, that's a great question. I think that energy is a very important prerequisite for every company. Every economic activity requires energy, and if the price goes up, obviously that inflationary effect feeds into everything and everybody. And certainly, as you said, in an inflation year, that becomes even more relevant. Now, if you look at globally what's happening, the war is going to carry on. We don't know when it's going to stop. I was just talking to one of my colleagues from the power sector industry in Ukraine, and he was saying we don't know when it's going to stop, right? So it's a little bit uncertain. So I think that uncertainty in the energy markets will continue to be there. What this means is that every country now is looking for securing their energy supplies, and that is causing disruptions in the market. Some commodity prices are going up. Oil is uncertain right now, but I think there'll be very sharp swings. And therefore, India has to play its own position very, very carefully. I think the fact that we are taking a bit of a position where we're able to continue to buy Russian crude, I think is very important to make sure that for us at least energy prices stay down. And we have hundreds of millions of people whose economic interests we have to protect as well. So I think that's the right thing to do. Of course, coal, we'll continue to mine coal because we need the power that it generates. Of course, at the same time, we're ramping up renewables as fast as possible. So we're doing all the things that can be done to make sure that our energy supplies are secure. In addition to that, we are trying to decouple now from China, as we all know, for the essential supplies of equipment. So I think all of that will mean that India will move towards energy security and energy independence over time, but it will take time to get there. In the short run, we will have to be nimble on our feet to make sure that we continue to secure energy supplies as needed.
Well, decoupling from China. Mr. Rajan Mittal, do you think we are doing that fast enough? Because politically, again, I say politically, there is criticism that India's imports from China have increased despite the standoff. It's not happening fast enough. You're from the telecom sector. That is an area where there are deep connections as far as the supply chain is concerned. Do you think we can actually decouple, and are we doing it fast enough?
It's going to take time. We are not doing fast enough is not really the issue, because what we have seen is over a period of time, their imports from China have been there for a long period of time. And it will have its own impact, but slowly and gradually. Till the time we don't move the supply chains, till the time we don't move the big boys, at least in electronics, with the billions of dollars that are being imported, there is a time lag. So we have to recognize that. Telecom has been done pretty quickly. I can tell you today, with the entire rollout of 5G, there is no Chinese equipment. 4G, probably, I believe, we are only about 20-25% of the 4G which is left with Chinese on the radio side. That also by the year end will be done with. So on telecom side, we've seen that we've really completely moved. Even handsets now are being manufactured in India. There are no more iPhones coming from China. So telecom side is done. As someone said, power and all is going to take time. And as we are going into now semiconductors and chipsets, it does not happen overnight. It's a 10-year
And we're
process.
talking about technology transfer, which really the big boys don't give it so easily.
And this is where I said, if there are trusted nations, trusted partners, we have to demand that. Otherwise, at the end of the day, if you don't have the entire value chain, just assembling something will not add value to our economy or proposition. So, but it's a long term. So it started. So don't expect that it will happen in 1 year or 2 years. It's a long process, but the start is good. That's all I can say.
Well, let me then also ask you a question which many CEOs are not very comfortable answering. We are in the run-up to the 2024 elections, and if you read and hear what's going on, we are in election mode. You said, states is where things happen. Cooperative federalism is a term that we've heard. But with the kind of divide we've seen between political parties and across the board, do you think the election year is going to be a year where things are not going to move as far as business and growth are concerned? Is that a fear that the industry shares?
I think somewhere we have seen over a period of time, while politics has its own place, economic has to be run parallelly. Elections in India are always happening. So let me put it this way. Every year you have election in different states, and then you have a central election after 5 years. So while this will be a run-up after this budget, but I'm sure that the government of the days, either in the center or the state, will recognize that economic velocity cannot be slowed down or stopped. Some bit will happen, but it always happens. It happens across the world. So India is nothing new. Every democracy goes through their process. So we will have to say some slowdown as long as the policy continuation happens.
Sumant, how do you think politics is going to impact the economy in the coming months? He says elections are there all the time, but this is the mega one.
Yeah.
This is the big one. And in the big one, preceded by 3 smaller ones, which will be also very big because of the closeness to the general elections. Do you think we will see suspended animation, or do you actually believe that everything will be hunky-dory and move at the pace that we expect it to?
Well, I'll make 2 points, Navika. First of all is that this government has been very, very prudent about their fiscal deficit. And I don't think that you'll see a lot of populist handouts. I don't think that's the style and the philosophy of this government. I think their view has always been long-term, and I think they'll continue to focus on building the economy for the long term. So I think that's as far as the government's position is concerned. At least this is my view, right? On the other side, as far as the economy is concerned, look, I think there's a lot of momentum in the economy. Corporates are not going to hold back their plans just because there is an election coming up. So I think you'll continue to see corporate capex going up. I think public sector capex will also go up. As you know, in the last budget, the FM had increased capex spend by almost 35%. This year, I expect to see a similar increase again. So I think you'll see spending carrying on, because I think this government realizes that the best way to win elections is to create economic growth and to create jobs, and to build the infrastructure and make the country more sort of efficient from a long-term.
And pressure on populism, that doesn't count?
No, I think, as I said, I think that the Prime Minister has this unique capability where he's able to actually sell, I think, the long-term work that is being done. as a positive, which so far I think political parties have not been able to do as much, and therefore there was this little bit of populism. I realize that we're straying into different territory here now, and this is your area, so I am not going to go there. But I think that look, I think it's going to be fine.
It's going to be fine. Well, the temperatures here, uncomfortable, some uncomfortable questions, always in order. But business is gung-ho. India is the story at Davos, and you can make that out by the number of Indians you see at the Davos promenade. More Indians than any other nationality. But the story goes along. How much of India will change? We'll keep an ear to the ground on that one. Thank you very much, Mr. Rajan Mittal and Mr. Sumant Sinha, for joining me here on the News Hour. And we'll catch up back home in India, closer to the budget, as well as closer to the elections, to see what really happens on the ground.